In the 20th century, the United States grappled with the challenges of two world wars and the Great Depression. Franklin D. Roosevelt, with his New Deal policies, ushered in an era of hope and recovery. His unprecedented four-term presidency demonstrated the country's willingness to rally behind a leader during times of crisis. The 1960s witnessed the rise of civil rights movements, and the election of John F. Kennedy as the first Catholic president was a landmark moment. His vision of a new frontier inspired a generation to dream big and work towards a better future. However, not all elections were marked by unity. The tumultuous 1968 election reflected a nation in turmoil, torn apart by the Vietnam War and civil unrest. Richard Nixon emerged as the victor, promising to restore law and order, but his presidency would later be marred by the Watergate scandal. The 21st century brought new challenges, from the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks to the economic recession of 2008. Barack Obama's historic election in 2008. The election of 2016 was a testament to this divide, as Donald Trump, a businessman with no political experience, won the presidency. In 2020, the nation faced the unprecedented challenges of a global pandemic. The election between the incumbent Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden unfolded against the backdrop of a deeply divided nation. Biden's victory marked a return to a more traditional style of governance, emphasizing unity and healing. The story of USA election history is an intricate tapestry woven with the threads of democracy, resilience, and the unwavering spirit of the American people. Each election, a chapter in this ongoing narrative, reflects the evolving nature of a nation striving to fulfill its founding promise of a government of, by, and for the people. The history of elections in the United States is a rich tapestry that reflects the evolution of American democracy over the centuries. Since the ratification of the U.S. Constitution in 1788, the country has conducted regular elections to choose its leaders at various levels of government. Here is an overview of key milestones and developments in U.S. election history. 1788 to 1789, the first presidential election. The first presidential election in the United States took place in 1788 to 1789, with George Washington unanimously elected as the country's first president. The electoral process was quite different from today, with each state appointing electors who, in turn, cast their votes for the president. In the early years, voting rights were limited to white male property owners. Over time, there was a gradual expansion of suffrage to include non-landowners, African Americans, following the Civil War, and women, with the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920. The early political landscape saw the emergence of political parties, with the Federalists and Democratic Republicans being the first significant parties. This laid the groundwork for the party system that has defined American politics. The election of 1824 is notable for being one of the few elections in which no candidate received a majority of electoral votes. The House of Representatives ultimately decided the winner, John Quincy Adams. The United States faced a severe test during the Civil War. President Abraham Lincoln's re-election in 1864 reflected a nation grappling with the challenges of war and the preservation of the Union. The post-Civil War era saw the ratification of the 15th Amendment in 1870, granting African American men the right to vote. However, the subsequent rise of Jim Crow laws in the southern states restricted voting rights through discriminatory practices. The 19th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified in 1920, finally granting women the right to vote nationwide. The Great Depression of the 1930s had a profound impact on American politics. Franklin D. Roosevelt's election in 1932 marked a shift towards a more active federal government with his New Deal programs. The mid-1960s saw the passage of significant civil rights legislation, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, aimed at dismantling racial segregation and ensuring voting rights for all citizens. The election of 2000 between George W. Bush and Al Gore ended with a controversial Supreme Court decision in Bush v. Gore, highlighting the importance of accurate vote counting and the complexities of the electoral process.